Our Highline Voices, 106.5 KQWZ LP FM. Connecting Highline and our region. Share your story. Our Highline Voices, history, cultural heritage, art, performances, contemporary, pop culture. We are very motivated to provide a vibrant community museum and authentic social gathering place. It truly takes a village to raise a museum. Despite the challenges, our daily inspiration is our eagerness to build a stronger and more connected community. This museum is from the community to the community. Our passion is for our visitors to have access to a broad spectrum of information sources and cultural perspectives. Our Highline Voices.
Hi, everyone. This is Nancy. I'm the director of the Highline Heritage Museum, and welcome back. We are excited today. We have a very special guest with us tonight, and I always say that everyone is special to me, and so I'm not making exceptions. Everyone is special. And so today, Mark will be introducing himself. He's going to be talking about who he is and the work that he does, and then the impact that he does too, because his work is impactful in our community in Highline, and I think beyond the Highline area. And so I'm just super excited to have him here with us today. And I just once again welcome back to the station, to the show, and I hope you enjoyed today's interview. So Mark, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and just let us know who are you and what you do.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Nancy. And just as an aside, you make everybody feel special when they're with you. So thanks so much for the introduction. I'm Mark Everton. I'm the CEO of the Explore Seattle Southside. We're the regional tourism authority representing the three cities that make up the Seattle Southside region. The three cities are SeaTac, Tukwila, and Des Moines. And then we also have some involvement in some of our surrounding cities, such as Burien, which is where the Highline Museum is located, obviously. And then also with Normandy Park and Kent Auburn, and a little bit further south down in Federal Way. So the Regional Tourism Authority, I don't want to say we rebranded, but we renamed ourselves so we don't sound quite so official by Explore Seattle Southside in early 2023. And we're funded, and I bring this up because it's kind of a nice way of understanding a little bit about where our funding comes from and what our responsibilities are. So we're funded through a tourism promotion area assessment, a TPA, which is somewhat unique to Washington. Other areas of the country have like business improvement districts or special tax assessments. This is very much a unique Washington thing. And there are about 107 tourism promotion area recognized regions in the state of Washington, and we happen to be one of them. And that money is then assessed on every occupied room for our larger hotels in the region. And again, that was SeaTac, Tukwila, and Des Moines. And it's $2 a night, and that money is collected by the hotels. It's remitted to the state of Washington along with their lodging tax, and that money then gets resent back to us. And that's really the very primary 99% of our funding comes from that source. So if you look at kind of heads in beds, direct hotel occupancy as being the source of our revenue, then that is also the purpose of the organization, is to build awareness and to encourage tourism and travel, group travel, sports travel, business travel, corporate travel, and then even contract travel for the cruise lines and the airlines to stay in our region. And what we found is while hotels obviously are the kind of the focal point of tourism, there's a lot more that goes on with tourism than just hotels. So a lot of times people that are staying in the region are shopping, dining, spending money locally, going to attractions. And I think, Nancy, you know that a lot of the people that walk through your door are not necessarily Burien residents or even Highline residents. You get a lot of people that come in, not only from around the state, but also from around the country and the world. And part of that, trickles down throughout the economy. And as you've mentioned in some of your other shows, just about the diverse nature of the communities that we live in and how diverse they are, that diversity is expressed to a great degree in a lot of family-owned and sole proprietor businesses that you see throughout the region. And tourism is a huge driver and supporter of those. And so one of the things that we find is that there's kind of a natural cycle of economic life, if you will, that as we bring tourists and visitors into the area, they leave money and they buy products and services, and that helps propagate additional businesses and a better well-being for our residents. And that's especially true for our BIPOC community and the people that are really kind of trying to make an opportunity for themselves and their family here in the community. So I think it's a win-win thing. So I take a great deal of pride. I'm not just selling the Hilton Hotel to a tourist. I'm really trying to sell the community and build awareness. And I think it's a very good calling that I have to be able to do that. I know that's a very long-winded introduction, but I wanted to give you a couple of things that you could follow up on, Nancy.
No. This is great. This is you. This is your space. You take ownership of the narrative and how you present yourself. So no, that take as long as you need to just express your ideas. To me, I've been working in the area for close to 20 years now, and it's always been so fascinating to find, those treasures, those things that it makes us unique from the rest of the state. One of them is the SeaTac Airport. I mean, when you think about globally and the impact of this airport does is just so unique. I mean, it's not like we are on the other side of the state or and we are next to SeaTac, the airport, and Seattle is growing up in ways that is just the speed of it is unique. I keep telling everyone that they need to remind themselves that we are not LA, we are not New York, but we're acting like we are. And when it comes to the history behind that, Seattle was created around 1850s, and the people started migrating to this area around 1870s. And so there, when you think about from the rest of the country, we are really, really new community. Mm-hmm. It's not that many generations. When I go to conference in the East Coast, for example, and they have their own museums and collections, I'm like, oh my goodness, when I look at the rich history that the rest of the country has versus here, we're talking about after we do have real rich Native American communities, and they've been here before that, but I'm talking about after that transition. And the pioneer families really are new generations. I mean, we're looking at probably 5 generations out of it. And so we have element 1, we are so close to the SeaTac Airport. And element 2, we acting like this mega city. I'm talking about next to Seattle, mega city, which is a mega city, but it's something that is new. And so there's not been generations with the adjustment of that transition. Mm-hmm. And then on top of it, you're dealing with a community that's been here, from 1870s and the displacement that took place because of the airport. And so you have a lot of different layers of issues and very intrigued and unique stories. And so on top of that, where we are located in the social and global context of where we are, there are really cool areas that belongs to this region. And I know that I will be using the term Highline, and you will be using your own demographic lines, geographically lines. But in the end, we do overlap in some of those areas, including SeaTac, for example, in Des Moines, a little bit of Des Moines, and in the region. To me, I see it as a region, not necessarily the boundary lines. And so one of the questions that I have for you is, tell me one of the things that gets you going. I mean, you're already tapped into why you like your work, but it's like, okay, we have a really cool region. It's a beautiful, naturally, like you have all this, the mountains and the water next to us, but then also historically is so complex and rich. And so one of the things that even though I'm not from the area, I was not born and raised in here, I find it really intriguing. I find it really interesting. And then there's a lot of really cool things to share. Tourism here, I think, is such a unique experience. Once again, we are so close to Seattle, but then there's a lot of really cool places here. Tell me one of your favorite reasons as to why you wake up in the mornings and say, okay, have fun. I know that you mentioned that you have groups like sports and business, and there's anything else or something special that like, whoa, I really, really like this part of the tourism in the area.
Well, one of the things that, kind of lights my fire that I'm really excited about is how we as an organization can use our lens, if you will, our telescope to highlight certain aspects of the community and to draw attention to them. So one of the things that we've been blessed with is we have an in-house videographer, photographer, and Sean Pono began this process of going out into the community. And he's been going to a lot of these family-run businesses and restaurants, a Thai restaurant here in Des Moines, a Vietnamese coffee shop over in, a Thai restaurant here in SeaTac, a Vietnamese coffee shop over in Tukwila, and he was recently at the Zenith Nursery down in Des Moines. And one of the things he does then is he does video that we can then emphasize and broadcast and promote these restaurants. And the thing that comes back almost universally from these entrepreneurs, that they're absolutely flabbergasted, they're blown away that we would come into their shop and that we would produce just this beautiful video for them and put it on the web. And they're getting marketing and promotion that they could never have imagined. I mean, they've taken pictures of some of their dishes and posted it to Pinterest or Facebook or to Instagram. And that's really as far as they've been able to go. And now all of a sudden they've got, beautifully shot and well lit, edited videos. And they're A, so grateful, and B, they realize that there are big companies out there that really care about the small proprietors. And so I'm very excited about that and what resource we can bring to the community. The other thing that's kind of interesting, and I think you're going to appreciate this, Nancy, is where our office happens to be right across the street from SeaTac Airport. I mean, literally right across the street. There's been days that I've left my office and been in my seat on a plane in less than a half an hour. And it's unheard of American airports. I mean, if your office was in downtown Denver, it's a good hour's drive to get out to the Denver airport. And in San Francisco, I've had to call an Uber to go one block off the airport because there's no way to walk out of San Francisco airport to go get your parked car because there's just no sidewalks and no streets. Here, you can walk across. So on our street, which is perpendicular to right in the middle of the airport, there is probably not a moment in any given day that there are not people either walking up from the airport or walking down to the airport. And these are the amazingly diverse groups of people that are working at the airport, that are working in the service areas and working in some of the administrative areas and a whole variety. And you could literally stand on the front steps of our little office building, and in an hour you could probably see people from a dozen or 15 different cultures and nationalities walking by. And so, they talk about being in the melting pot, and we are definitely in an area that is so infused with all of these different cultures. The other thing that's really funny is we have a 7-Eleven right next door to us, and we've all been into a 7-Eleven, and every 7-Eleven is exactly the same, whether it's a 7-Eleven in, Hoboken, New Jersey, or a 7-Eleven in LA, or a 7-Eleven in SeaTac. But that's not true. There is a whole shelf that's dedicated to bread that is not coming out of the Wonder Bread factory. This is bread that's all being made by local artists and bread makers. And this is flat bread that ties back with the culture. I can't even begin to describe what this bread is. A lot of them have stickers and tags on them that are written in whatever the native language is of where that bread is representative of. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we got a 7-Eleven that's as homogenized and as standardized as anything you can possibly think of. And yes, they've got Slurpees, and yes, they've got those little hot dogs that spin around on the machine by the cash register. But then they've got bread from probably 15 different cultures sitting on their shelves that obviously are wrapped and packaged, in a very homemade sort of way. One other funny story I wanted to share with you. A number of years ago, I was running the similar organization in Oakland, California, called Visit Oakland. And we were blessed in that National Geographic selected Oakland as one of the 20 best places to visit in the world. I think that year Cairo was chosen as one of the cities, and I think Johannesburg was chosen as one, and Oakland, California, of all places. And the reason that we were selected was because of our culture and the diversity that existed in Oakland. And there was, 120 different languages spoken in the public school system. So to some degree, similar to what we're experiencing in the Seattle Southside or the Highline region with the diverse cultures. But we got selected for culture as a place to want for people all over the world to come and visit. And I remember shortly after the article came out, and we were on the cover of National Geographic, one of my hotel general managers said, "Hey, Mark, tell me about this culture thing. What time does it start? We want to tell our guests." I said, "What time does what start?" He goes, "The culture, that National Geographic was talking about. When is that? Where do they go find that? Because maybe we could do a map and show them where the culture is." And it just emphasizes, and I see that you're smiling, it just emphasizes that there's a misunderstanding, there's this misconception that it is not, it's not like where to fish or where to go dig up a diamond. It is so infused. It is in everything that we breathe and drink and see, and it's really every part of every day of our lives when we're immersed in this culture. So that's what I'm most excited about, is to just see all the variety and versatility that we've got.
And in Highline area, and I love that story. And yes, I'm smiling for many reasons. My head is just popping up in different things I want to say. But right now, I'm just going to focus on you and the work that you do, tie it into what you just said. In Highline, we got 17,000 kids in the school district. 104 languages are spoken in the area.
Right.
So the South End, there's a lot of migration happening from Seattle to the South. And so you do see a lot of diversity taking place. But then when you look at the history of the area, the redlining was implemented here. It's not well documented, because we are still very young as our museum and historical location, but it is proven that the redlining was implemented here. And so there was not really that much diversity in the South End until 1980s. And so in the early 1990s, that's when you really started to see, and you're right, it is the expansion of the airport, this expansion of all these different, people need to just survive, and it's all about economics and the opportunities that comes with it. One of the things that happened in the beginning for us is like, okay, this is a community place, as a museum, and then trying to serve as many people as we can within our mission. But little by little, I'm learning the lesson that is a very different when you use the term community versus tourism entity. You're targeting different demographics. Like, for example, when we have this project going on with the CTAC, and that term is very specific. It's a tourism opportunity, and then targeting the hotels and targeting passengers that are just passing by the airport, and then maybe the final destination is Seattle or maybe other location, but we're still trying to I use the term trap them, but no, trying to attract them to the space. But I learned as I'm continuing this work is that even though everything is intertwined, everything is we share the same space. Let's just say the city of SeaTac, you have a community on it, but you also have the airport. And so what you were saying, your office is right there in a place where you can just walk in and out. And so the same thing happens with the residents. The same thing happens with the passengers. And then you are tapping into this topic of what I've been dealing with is this a community place or is a tourism place? And it's both. It is both. There's no one or the other. It's just added to it. It is both. And how do we make it that it's cohesive in how we serve one audience or the other one? And so, like in our case, I want to make sure that people, even if they are from the other side of the planet, they can come in and somehow relate to what they see. So it's not just local history. It's about a human element or human factor. And one of them is about one element that everything seems to glue together to me is heritage. We do share that we all have different heritage, that we do have our own different identity, and our need to say, who are we and how do we relate to another person? And so regardless if you're a tourist or if you're a resident or if you're just passing by, we have the need of connecting and the need to, we do have a map in the museum, and you can tell like all these people are coming from all different parts of the planet. And it's amazing. I mean, there's some islands that are like, what island is that? It's a tiny little dot in the middle of the ocean. It's like, what is that? And you see people pointing on that one. Even all the way up to the North Arctic anyway, I'm not going to go deep into that, but all
Right.
I'm saying it is really, really interesting to see, one, the number of people that come by, two, how rich this region is, in a combination of tourism and commercial and residential and passengers and all of that. The question I got for you is, knowing that one of your but one of the reasons that makes you excited to do the work that you do is just to acknowledge what is around you. Do you see that we already know the hidden treasures on the area, or do you think that there's still a lot more work to do? I still like digging into. I feel like this is like an archaeological site that we just step into a few little pieces, but I just feel that the more we excavate, we find more. Do you feel, or do you think that is the same for you? Do you think that this is just the top of the iceberg where we just stepping into, and the more we learn the stories and fascinating things, the more rich it becomes? Do you think it's true to you?
Oh, I think the need for us to wear our archaeologist hat or helmet is very relevant. And I think about the number of different hats that I wear, and there's times that I put on my business person's hat and I have to go and do a report out to city council or to one of the city council committees. And then there's times that I put on my Barker hat, like I'm on the boardwalk and I'm trying to get people to come to town and trying to, what was the word you used earlier? I try to trap them and get them in the door, and get them to stay with us. And we do that quite often. Yeah.
Attract them, to pull them in.
Yeah. And we do that quite often when we're talking with groups and meetings and corporate travel, and what are the attributes that we offer that would encourage them to be able to bring their group here or their tour or whatever it might be. But yeah, there's very definitely, and it's funny, we have a weekly staff meeting. We're all currently we're a team of 10, and we are soon to grow to a team of 12. So each week, one of the things, the focus on the staff meetings is, what are you working on? What's of interest to the rest of the group, and help educate them of what you've kind of, on your archaeology analogy, kind of what have you unearthed or what have you discovered? And there is just a phenomenal amount of stuff that comes out every week that we are all, scratching our heads at time and thinking, how did I not know that? Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. And then we pivot to, how do we augment that? And how do we broadcast it? How do we market that? One of the things we've done as an organization is we've created a scenes program, scenes like a movie scene, SCENE. And with that, we've been able to highlight a bunch of those areas, whether it's the Nike missile site that was built during the Cold War that has now been converted over to an off-leash dog park. But it's a great place to go for a stroll because it's just beautiful vistas. It's up on the ridge line between the SeaTac side and the Tukwila side. Or Robert Morris's Earthworks, which was a quarry at one point that was abandoned and was just a really blighted parcel of ground. And Robert Morris, using some money from For Culture, I believe, ended up converting it into a interactive art exhibit, in that he reformed this gravel pit into, I look at it as a labyrinth, in that an ability to walk in concentric circles down to the bottom of this pit and then reverse that process back up. And on a given day when I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, I find it's a great opportunity to go out and get some fresh air, but more importantly, to kind of let your mind wander a little bit. And I think walking in those concentric circles, and I know with your Latin American history and your background, I know, Nancy, that labyrinths are quite something, and that ability to go and let your brain escape a little bit and go do that. So we've highlighted, those are just two of the examples, and we've got a dozen more that we've highlighted in the scenes program. So it's really our ability to go and uncover things and to learn things. And one of the things I know we're supporting your organization with is your tour and your driving tour through the region, and to be able to show off some of those things that people didn't realize, that Jimi Hendrix had performed at the Spanish Castle, which is now, I think, a drugstore down in the Des Moines area. But there's a lot of hidden gems, and it's like you said, we seem to scratch the surface, and just phenomenal stories that one learns. Why is Military Road Military Road? And the negative side of it was the connection between the forts during the times that the indigenous people were being persecuted to a big degree along the Pacific Northwest. But then the Military Road was converted into a variety of other purposes, a lot of them military related. So yeah, there's everywhere you look, there's a lot of stories. But I think the other thing, going back to kind of the diversity theme, is that I think each one of these people that we see on the streets and on the sidewalks, or that we ride the elevator and escalator with, also have stories to tell and also have really interesting perspectives of what's going on. And one quick aside, probably about a year and a half ago, the Washington governor's office reached out to explore Seattle Southside and visit Seattle and Tacoma and Snohomish County and Pierce County. And the governor had made a commitment to bring a good number of Afghan families that had been living on U.S. military bases that had been brought out of Afghanistan right at the time of the U.S. pullout, at the time of the fall of Kabul, if you will. And they were brought and really had, they needed some place to stay. So the U.S. government put them up on military bases. Time had gone by. They needed to be assimilated into the rest of society, and the military wanted their bases back. So a plea went out to the states to say, hey, we need to assimilate these people. We need your help in finding housing and employment for them. We want to keep these family units together. And we're blessed that our governor stepped up and said, we'll take a lot. And when I do the math, it's a multiplier of what California took, or what Texas took, or what some of our other populous states took. So Washington took an inordinate percentage of these Afghan families. So the governor's office, reached out to us, and the Port of Seattle was also involved in it because they were going to be coming through SeaTac. So they reached out to us and said, hey, we need temporary housing. We need to be able to put these families up someplace. And so we're, can you help us? We have some money to pay. We're not asking for put them up free, but we need someplace that we can also provide social services for them. And one of our hotels, the large DoubleTree that's directly across the street from the airport, they said, we'll just take them all. And it's, I get a little choked up when I think about that. There was just no question at all. They just said, no, we'll take them all. We've got a lot of Afghan-speaking staff members that can be able to provide assistance and guidance, especially if there's an emergency that occurs. And we're constantly looking for more employees. And this is a great opportunity for those that have an opportunity to work, that we can probably find some employment for them. And I think they ended up taking hundreds, maybe like close to 1,000 people came through the DoubleTree before they were then found more permanent housing, primarily out in the Kent Valley, out in some of the communities that are that a lot of Afghan prior refugees that have come have really migrated to. And what made it really interesting, and I went over one day to visit and to see if you've been in the DoubleTree, it's kind of the old architectural style DoubleTree, and there are pods. So there are several buildings that are connected together, and the buildings are round. And what they were able to do is not only were they able to put families together in adjoining or connecting rooms, but they were also able to take a whole floor and be able to bring a whole group of Afghan families in there. And so the day I walked over, there were probably 15 kids from the age of probably 3 to 12 that were playing soccer in the hallway because it was a rainy day and they shouldn't be out in the parking lot. Where else are you going to find that? In most hotels, it would be, oh, no, you can't play soccer in the hallway because you're going to disturb the other guests. The DoubleTree was like the perfect environment for them. And then in collaboration with the governor's office and some of the state social services, these people got an opportunity to get the services provided to them that they needed to then get more permanently located and get kids enrolled in school and to get healthcare that was needed for some of the family members. So just a really interesting story, because you think sometimes, big airport, it's going to be very sterile. It's going to be very, it's not going to be a community because of the airport. And it's funny because, last night, Nancy, I drove over to the Shower Center, and when you drive that way, you go through southern Tukwila and probably, I don't know, Kent, I guess, on your way over to the Shower Center. And there are blocks and blocks of just large, white, flat-roofed logistics buildings, right? And you don't see anything. There's no stores, there's no shops, there's no people, there's no pedestrians, there's no bike lanes, there's nothing, just these large warehouses, with trucks coming and going. And you flip that over to going through downtown Burien, or going through even Normandy Park or Des Moines. There are people on every block, and there are people out walking, and all of a sudden you have this impetus of community and of connectiveness that you don't see. So I think, going back to your archaeology analogy, I think part of what's been discovered in our region and in the Highline area is that there is a lot of culture, and you just barely have to scratch the surface, and you're going to find it. And I think it's just going to, the more you scratch the surface, the more of that culture is there for the touching and the feeling and the learning from. So.
I think not just in culture, but also in, like I say, human element or human factors, where I do believe that when I use the term diversity and inclusion, is all about, it's all about the representation of who we are, and not necessarily the color of our skin or ethnicity. Mm-hmm. A Mexican label is this small. I'm more than that. I'm a woman, I'm a mom, I got issues, and there's many different labels that we all get represented every single day. And so when it comes to connectivity and in the sense of connection to other people, I believe that is, you're a mom, I'm a mom too. Oh, I got a teenager, you do, and so on. And so there's all these different areas that we overlap and connect. That story that you share is so interesting. I really want to do an interview or save that story or talk to someone. Last week we released an interview with maybe they're part of the group, I don't know. There were in total 6 girls who were doing poetry and they were from Afghanistan, and they were talking up, they're teenagers, and so they're talking this poetry and talking about the pain that they have, and mm-hmm. You just see it in a way that from the eyes is no filter, is no curated, is no guided. It is just them talking about the transition that they feel. And so you hear them and it's like, whoa, and you can feel that. And you feel that because you're connecting from that emotional level, you're connecting from that human level. You're talking about the ability of seeing our communities, how they're growing and how they experience things. And I'm just, like you said, we're really lucky. I think that this is one of the really coolest areas in the state, and where you see a little bit of everything. And then the archaeology that needs to take place in here is just the beginning, from the pioneer families to Native American communities to the recent demographics that you see changing, to the arts in business and commercials and all that general infrastructure, what makes a community. And so it is really fascinating to tap into different areas. Last night, I know that this radio interview will be aired a little later, but last night it was the initiative from the King County that was passed, the Doors Open initiative, that will allow more funding to come down to the to the whole county, to the whole King County. And it's a really transformational was coming. I don't know the actual, last night was just passed, but I don't know the actual implementation when this will take place. But we in the beginning of the year, really soon. And so I'm assuming that whatever it is, it will be in 2024. And I see that the transformation will take place faster than before because of that initiative that took place last night.
Good.
So we're talking about like a big chunk of money coming into the arts and culture in the whole county. And so we're looking at, I think, $90 million a year.
Wow. That's great.
So, and so in 25% of that money is allocated outside of the Seattle area. And so we know that we will be able to see some changes all around. And so I know that the arts and culture will be present. We'll be able to provide more tourism opportunities. We'll be able to provide more community engagement opportunities. And it's just as a general, have this really cool flow of different things taking place all at once. And And I don't know, I just feel like it's going to be a new year, a new buffet of opportunities in front of us,
Right.
and then being able to really see, okay, what is it that we want to do, and how do we see ourselves growing in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and what is the direction that we're heading. Our time is limited now. We're almost there.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like I've just started to talk to you 5 years
Yeah.
ago. But I would like to let you say, share your last thought, your last comment, and just anyone who is listening and who is watching this video that will be able to say, hey, I like that guy. I was able to connect to what they do in the mission and the organization. So anything that you would like to share, this is you, the last part of it.
Well, thank you, Nancy. It's a very open door for us, so it's easy to find us. We're at just Google Seattle Southside or seattlesouthside.com. Come to our website and see what we've got. There's a lot of opportunity to interact with us. And as Nancy and I were talking about, the tip of the iceberg and, putting in our archaeology hat, we love to know some of the hidden secrets. So things that you know that, because you've lived here forever, or you've heard from your neighbor, or, you've always wondered about where does that sign go, or what is that? Just reach out to us. Great opportunity. As I mentioned, we're right across the street from SeaTac Airport. So we're very much on the ground here in the region, and very, very approachable. So please reach out. We'd love to. And if you haven't had an opportunity yet, please go over and visit the Highline Heritage Museum over in Burien. It is, if I have another minute, I tell a really quick, funny story. So I happened to be delivering some paperwork over to the city of Tukwila, and the city manager came out, and he and I hadn't met before. We'd seen each other on Zoom, so we chit-chatted and talked about history and background and everything. And I mentioned that I was planning on coming over and visiting the Highline Heritage Museum, and he mentioned that he had never been there and been to your museum and very much wanted to come. So we agreed. We picked a day and a time, and I reached out to Nancy and said, "Hey, could you give us a special tour? And can we come an hour before the doors open?" And it was all good. That morning that I was coming over, I happened to be at the dry cleaner, right in the SeaTac Tukwila corner. And standing next to me at the dry cleaner was the mayor of Tukwila. And so we were chit-chatting. And I said, "Hey, I'm going over at lunchtime today with your city manager to see the Highline Heritage Museum." And he said, "Oh my gosh, I've always wanted to go there. Can I come along?" And I said, "Yeah." So in one fell swoop, we delivered two very significant city leaders from the region that have input and an impact on a great deal of things going on in the region. And we brought them over. And Nancy, you were so gracious to spend an hour with us and walk us through the museum. So it's not open to everybody. Everybody doesn't get a private tour from Nancy. You got to come during working hour, but it's a hidden gem. And you don't have to scratch the surface. You just come knock on the door afternoon, I think, most weekdays. So
No, this is one of the blessings, or one of the amazing opportunities that I'm experiencing as a director, and then us as a museum, is that, leaving this stage as an open mic for anyone to come in and share the stories and
right.
truly and break the rules from the typical museum structure. I used to teach in the University of Washington, so I know what the best practices are. I'm a board member of the Washington Museum Association, so I know the rules that I need to follow. But there's some areas that I just completely break the box of it, and it just, let's try something new. And one of those is exactly the people having the control of their own narratives. And one of the cool things that happened out of that tour is that they came back again last week, and once again they made a comment like, "Do you know Tukwila? Part of Tukwila is also in Highline." And like, and then it's like, we need to have that conversation. And so there's not only them, but there's even council members from Tukwila who's talking to me now, like, that Highline is also part of Tukwila, right? It's like, yeah. And so in one way or another, we are interconnected, and it just, the conversations and dialogues and get to know each other, and the opportunities that are out there is really, really it's a humble experience to get to know people at many different parts of life, coming in either as a government or as a pioneer family or as a kid, just sharing their own voices and perspectives. And
Right.
And then they say, "Hey, can we do something fun with this?" Like, yes, you can. And so I appreciate so much your support. Yes, the Seattle Tourism Authority has been able to support us in many different ways. We are so thankful. So please check them out. They are really cool. They have a really cool stories. Yeah, and I think I actually mentioned a little bit of your organization when we interviewed Steve Edmiston. He was here with us, and we were talking a little bit about you guys. So like, oh yeah, they're doing all these really fun, cool things. And so once again, check them out. They're really friendly, they're welcoming, and they're doing an awesome job. And yes, if you have any mysteries or cool stories to share, let's just share it out there in the community. Let's just bring it all up and celebrate each other. So once again, thank you, Mark, for
You're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you, Nancy, for all that you're doing for our community. You're just a huge asset for us. So thank you. And thank you for allowing me to tell my story on your museum channel. So I appreciate it.
Thank you for all of you.
Our Highline Voices, 106.5 KQWZ LP FM.
We envision ourselves sitting at a round table where no one is the leader and stories are heard respectfully, regardless of gender, age, sexual orientation, disabilities, or ethnicity. We want to embrace our differences and similarities. We are creating a place where visitors can connect with the stories and each other. Our mission is we collect, preserve, and tell the stories of the Highline region and its people. We want to extend our mission outside the walls of the museum. Our Highline Voices represents us all, honoring our past, celebrating our present, and uniting to cultivate our future. This project allows us to reach out to demographics who might be unable to visit the museum. People with disabilities, low-income families, people who don't trust museums, and more. In partnership, we are launching a locally programmed new radio station at the museum, featuring recorded and live Highline's heritage, history, culture, arts, and more. Are you interested in sharing your story? Email director@highlinemuseum.org.